Hey, good morning, everybody. Today we're going to look at section or chapter 2, which is looking at economic systems. So what I want you to kind of think about and listen for are 3 economic questions that every society must answer. That's very important. That's fundamental. That's going to come up several times throughout the semester. So really pay attention to that and understand that. Understand the differences between free enterprise, socialism, decentralized socialism, and communism. Explain what an economic system is, and then who is Friedrich Hayek, what does he say about social planning, and then what does Karl Marx say about the labor theory of value. So here we go. The 3 economic questions that every economy, every society, every country needs to answer is what goods are going to be produced, how will those goods be produced, and for whom will those goods be produced. And how we answer those 3 questions makes up our economic system. If the government is making all of those decisions, then you're going to be called what's called a centrally planned or a communist system. If the government is involved in none of those and it's all individuals, then you're going to be what's called a market system or a free market. Spoiler alert: there is no pure free market. Basically every system is some form of a mixed system where you have varying levels of government involvement. So what is going to be produced? So what goods are we going to be produced? How are we going to produce them? And then for whom will we produce? Again, in a world of scarcity where our unlimited wants, yet we have limited resources, are at play, by nature, then scarcity exists. So again, scarcity in time, scarcity in money, scarcity, whatever it is. Yeah, the resources as well, but to make the goods. But again, time and money are the easiest examples of scarcity, and that forces then us to make choices, and it forces businesses to make choices of what they're going to produce, how they're going to produce it, and for whom. And so. Again, what are we going to produce in our system, in our more market-based free enterprise system with, again, government involvement? What's going to be produced? Well, what's going to be produced is what we demand, what consumers demand, within reason. Of course, that's where we are not a true free system, because we do have government involvement, because there are certain things that are illegal, that cannot be produced because the government says it is illegal. So by that value there, we are not a true free market where anything can be produced that's being demanded. So what's going to be produced? Anything that consumers demand that is lawful. How will they be produced? Again, you go back 120 years, they were producing things however they wanted. They'd throw the waste in the rivers, pollute the lakes, whatever it was. Well, the government stepped in and said, well, that's not good. We can't do that to the environment. And so now, how will we produce them? We will produce them in the most efficient, low-cost possible way that falls in line with government regulations for how things need to be produced in a safe manner. And then in our system, for whom will the goods be produced? That's the easiest thing. Whoever demands it, whoever wants it and can pay for it. Okay, that's the definition of demand, to have the desire for something and the ability to pay for it. In our system, that's what goods are being produced for. People aren't making goods just for a certain group of people. It might look that way, but it's making it for those people who can afford it. So whoever can afford the good can buy the good. Okay. I'm going to just looking at the definition. So free enterprise is an economic system in which individuals own all or most of the resources. Those are the factors of production. Going back to chapter 1, the land, the labor, and the capital. And then the entrepreneur comes in, gathers those factors, pays for those factors, and then produces something. Okay? So that is a free enterprise system that is also known as capitalism or a market economy. Again, we are more of a capitalist market economy. Of course, we aren't pure though. Socialism is the kind of the opposite, where instead of individuals owning the factors of production, the government owns the factors of production. Okay? And so the government will own those resources, the land, the labor, the capital. And sometimes socialism is referred to as a command economy because the government is commanding the economy, or communism. Okay. And then just do I have another? I don't. This one's the biggest one, so we'll stop here. So again, just a nice little breakdown comparing capitalism and socialism. So again, ownership of resources, private versus public. Again, private means individuals, public means the government. Again, the motive in capitalism is profit. And you might say, well, that sounds bad. Well, not necessarily, because if I as a business am profitable, that generally means that my employees have an opportunity to do well, and maybe I'll expand, and maybe I'll be able to hire more people. People get caught up in the profit or the motive of socialism being social welfare, but again, if you look at a lot of the places where socialism has been, or communism has been, the social welfare is terrible for people. Look at modern Venezuela, look at Cuba, look at North Korea, and those are not places where the average person is doing well. And so again, we get caught up in the utopian view of socialism, where everybody is equal and there's no classes, and again, that just doesn't happen in real life. So freedom of choice in capitalism, we've got consumer sovereignty. And in socialism, it's what the government says you're going to make, or what they're going to make, and that's what you get. And so you have limited choices in a socialist system. Again, just looking down, again, government, less or no interference. In the fancy Latin term is laissez-faire, again, with limited government involvement. And in socialism, it is absolute power of the government. Okay, so main differences is, again, the way that decisions are made. Again, government will make the decisions in socialism. Generally speaking, individuals will make the decisions in a true free market, free enterprise. Individuals do make all the decisions. Again, that doesn't exist in reality. And so, again, within a mixed system, if you're more on the market spectrum, you will then find individuals making those decisions within the realm of what the government is allowing. So, and by that aspect, we are not a true free system. There is regulation. Income distribution in free enterprise, that's based off of work, income. There is no government involvement, or there should be no. In a socialist system, again, the government collects everything and then distributes the wealth theoretically equally. Of course, that doesn't happen in real life, though. Again, so does the United States operate under a free enterprise system? Well, we're closer to free enterprise than socialist, to be sure, but again, we do have government involvement. So, and again, every system has government involvement to some extent. Decentralized socialism is similar to what you find in some of Europe now. Again, government oversees much that occurs in the economy, but does not control every aspect of the economy. And again, that's more of that democratic socialism that you'll see in Europe, in some of the countries in Europe, and where you have the socialized healthcare, and you have the universal college and things like that. So, with that, though, college, or the taxes and the amount of money that you're giving to the government goes up substantially as well. Okay, so quickly then through these, again, you're either most economies are going to be some aspect of this, and again, where they are closer to the communist or closer to the free enterprise is just basically how much government involvement is there. So again, can every country's economy be easily categorized? Well, more or less, yeah. We're basically a mixed economy, a world. Okay, so we are more free enterprise in the United States, but we do still have government involvement. So what's going to be produced? Again, determined partly by the consumer and by government. How to produce it? Again, producers seeking profits, and by government regulation. So within those realms, and then for whom has the purchasing power? Okay, and then within some realms of that, some of it is, again, government, then handouts. A couple years ago, found this, the economic world rankings. So the higher that you are, the more economically free you are. So Singapore, Switzerland, Ireland, Taiwan, which is, again, the little island off of China, Luxembourg. Where is the United States on here? I thought I had highlighted it, but I didn't. UAE, we're 25th. We're 25th. Again, some people think that that's not a good thing, but we're probably pretty high on the property rights, things like that. So, where do we dip the most? Government spending, yeah, I'd agree with that one. We're very low on fiscal health because of the government spending and because of the debt that we have. So that's a huge reason why we're down so low. Otherwise, we'd probably be 10 plus points higher, I would say at least. But it is what it is. Our government spends and borrows, and that's a hindrance to our economic freedom. So the lowest, again, some of the countries you just don't have data for, and that is kind of an indictment on those, save for Liechtenstein. But again, Yemen, Ukraine, Syria, Somalia, Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, those are all nations that are either at war or have been at war within the last 20 years and have substantial instability. And then you look at Korea, North Korea, Cuba, Venezuela, Sudan has had violence, Zimbabwe's, but not, and so, and a lot of these then countries down here are either communist or more authoritarian, and in Africa. And they probably are, you can see they're docked property rights, judicial effectiveness, and things like that. So it's not that there's a tax burden necessarily in some of those countries, but it's the fact that it's just not necessarily a safe, stable place. So when we talk about stability and things like that impacting the economy, well, that's that. Your two competing philosophers for free enterprise and then for communism are going to be Adam Smith, and then for communism it'll be Karl Marx. Adam Smith was writing around the time of the American Revolution. His writings had an immense impact on those people, the founding fathers of the United States, and he believed in free enterprise. That's the best system that produces the most goods and services, and in a society that's what you want. You want to have the most goods and services available to people. Smith says that our self-interest, basically self-interest is just another way of saying our selfishness, forces us to work hard, take risks, because our selfishness and our self-interest is to make the most money that we possibly can, and to do that we need to produce something valuable and differentiate ourselves from others. And to do that, you need to serve your self-interest, you needed to then serve the consumer first, because if you're not serving the consumer first and making something that they want, then you're not going to benefit, and your self-interest will, again, cripple you. And so that's kind of what Smith believes. He also believes that we as consumers are selfish as well, because and we'll get into this when we get into supply and demand, and we'll kind of bring Adam Smith back in there, but when we're demanding something, we will demand more products at lower prices. And at higher prices, I as a seller, I will be willing to supply more at higher prices. So you'll buy a lot at low prices, and I'll sell a lot at high prices. Those things are opposites, okay? They're diametrically opposed to one another. So the invisible hand of the marketplace will grab my self-interest and your self-interest and gradually bring them together. And that point is called the equilibrium point. And it's a point at which you're satisfied, I'm satisfied, and the market will be cleared of want on your end and products on my end. And so we'll both be satisfied. We may not be overwhelmingly happy, but we'll both be satisfied. And that's really what it's about. Okay? Switching on here to Karl Marx, again, 19th century economist out of Germany, philosopher out of Germany. He believes that self-interest is the root of all evil, basically. It leads to nothing good. Again, Marx believes that capitalists pursuing their self-interest exploit the workers. And there are examples of that, to be sure. But unfortunately, in a system like ours, where you have we are more of a Adam Smith economy. We value that entrepreneur taking a risk with their capital. And then, again, if they risk their capital, they should be the ones that benefit. Because if I lose my job, and I'm working for somebody, I lose my job, or that business goes out, I lose my job and I can go on to another job, try to find another job. The entrepreneur, the person that owns that company, they're in trouble because they may have a bigger financial burden than just me losing my job and not getting a paycheck. But Karl Marx says that labor, in the labor theory of value, all value of the produced good comes from the labor. Again, the labor for him is the most important thing. In reality, it's probably a little bit of Marx and a little bit of Smith. The entrepreneur is important because without the entrepreneur, you don't have a job. But for Marx, if you're an entrepreneur that's looking to maximize and have a great volume, you need to have labor. And so the labor is also important. And so it's a little bit of A, a little bit of B. But in an enterprise system, the entrepreneur is vital because they're the ones that are gathering the factors of production, taking the risk, and then getting there. Okay, and then lastly here, Friedrich Hayek and the Road to Serfdom. Again, he wrote a book, and he believed that central planning governments lead to dictatorships, and it flat out proved itself in the 20th century. In pretty much every aspect where you get just pure central planning, you find dictatorships, whether it be in Italy, obviously the Soviet Union, but in Italy, in Germany. Again, that government, that economy was completely centrally planned by the Nazis. Again, it wasn't communist by any means, but it was still centrally planned. You get dictatorship. And Cuba, you get dictatorship. China, initially, you get dictatorship. Venezuela, in essence, you have a dictatorship. And the Korea, you have North Korea, you have dictatorship. And so when you have a planned economy, Hayek is saying that you are inherently unfree, and you will become serfs, working and being told what to do by the government. And for him, he said that's absolutely no way to live. And so again, Friedrich Hayek often doesn't get talked about in high school econ. I find him a little fascinating though. So again, the fancy word is called prescient in his viewpoint of what was going to happen. In what happened with a lot of dictatorships and central planning in that 20th century. So that's that. That's section one. Next section we'll look at will be what's called globalization. So have a wonderful day, and I'll see you guys later.